This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. It's straight to the point to respect people's time, and because we know knowledge and wisdom turn to business possibility, and possibility mixed with support and action become reality. In this podcast, we discuss leadership, sales, marketing, operations, team development, quality, and finance to drive sustainable results and everlasting impact to make the world a better place. Thanks for joining us. Eric, I'm super excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast.
Brad, I'm so excited to be here. I think we're going to have a great conversation.
Indeed. So for all of you listening and watching, I imagine you know that we probably have a little chit chat just before the show. And Eric, I already love the energy you're bringing, and I know this is going to be a lot of fun. So would you be willing to share with the people listening and watching a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I always talk about wearing a lot of hats. So I wear two primary vocational hats. So Monday through Wednesday, I am a chairside clinical dentist in my hometown, and I see patients and help manage a team for those 3 days. And then Wednesday night's kind of the magic, I guess my wife and I call it the hot butter knife type of event. We go out for dinner, either just the two of us for a date or have some friends over. And then that's kind of the signal that the second part of my week is starting. And I would just call that the content part of my week. So that's when I do coaching, speaking, content creation, writing, all of that kind of stuff. So centered around helping high achievers who kind of like me have worked their tails off to get where they're at, and they're not really sure what it looks like going forward from where they are. They're not sure that the mountain that they're climbing is the right mountain, or if they're going to find the answers at the top. And that's where I love to come in and talk with people and help them figure out what the path forward is going to be so that they can believe that good days are going to be ahead. So that's what I love to do. And that's what keeps me plenty busy.
I love that. So you've got your week really split into two halves, and you have a little indicator there, which sounds pretty fun in the middle. That's fantastic. I really like that. For the first half, I'm just going to be fully transparent. Like, I don't know a whole lot about that. the dentist side, that's not my thing, although I've been to a few. Yep. Some good ones. But I'd love to dive into the other half. But feel free to share anything you think might be valuable for the audience and people listening and watching too with regard to dentistry. But
absolutely.
The second half I'd love to dive into. I love what you shared for many reasons. One, because that's my background. I desperately needed that when I first started in this journey of ours, right? And I mean everyone. And so I needed some of that, where I thought I had come to the top of the mountain and realized that, oh, that was just one of the peaks. There's still yet a lot to go, if not infinitely, right? So yeah. So I love what you're sharing there, but it's so powerful to have somebody walk through with you and walk through some of those and have some experience to be able to share and walk through. Would you be willing to not only have lots of, coaches and some speakers that listen, lots of entrepreneurs and business owners, but I think it would be really cool. Would you just describe in your own words what that experience is like and how you're impacting people in that space? I think that would be, it'd be great to hear from you, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have, and I'll probably get into this a couple of times, but if I go way back to kind of explain how I got to where I was bullied quite a bit when I was growing up. And a lot of people don't believe that about me because I'm 6'5", I'm fairly athletic, I've accomplished a lot of things. But a lot of that accomplishment was born of not being picked to play on teams. And it's one thing, recess kickball when I was growing up was everything. So lunchtime recess kickball, you had to play that. And there were a number of times when I wasn't allowed to play. So it wasn't that I wasn't picked last. It wasn't that I was picked last. It was that I wasn't allowed to play. And so there's a lot of things that you can do with that. But what I did is I kept it to myself, and I decided that I'm going to be so darn good at everything that nobody will ever not pick me. So I overcompensated and pushed so hard at everything that I did in my life all the way through. And it's really just been within the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years that I've wrapped my head around that and realized what all that striving did, how much stress it caused, how much burnout it caused. And now I've been able to figure out how to bridge that gap. And I want to work with other people to help them bridge that gap to get to a life that they don't want to wake up from.
I love how you shared that. So I asked you a question, and you shared a story about your personal life, and you went right back to childhood, which I think is a great place to start. We so often, and when I say we, I mean all of us, right? Everybody listen and watch. We so often have these things that occur that create some trauma within us. And trauma is a pretty strong word, but at a young age, that stuff is traumatic, right? So, and then over time, we revisit, and it becomes a thing, right? So I'm not using technical psychological terms here, but it becomes a thing. And so many of us carry these things and are just unaware of it, that because I so relate to the story you shared in a different way, right? But when you were speaking, I could think of the exact thing that happened to me when I was young, and what that caused in me, and having overcome that, I relate, and what you shared resonates. So these things, if you're listening and watching it, you've never worked with a coach, these things come to light through the conversations that you have in coaching, and then you're able to surmount them, or you're able to overcome them and move through them. So I love that you shared a personal story. What would you add to that, Eric?
So I believe that we are all on a journey. So people call it, where it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's this, it's that. To me, it's a journey. A marathon and a sprint are races. I've done a gazillion races in my life, and no matter what the length, it's a race. And so I like to think of life more as a journey. And I feel like when we're on a journey, we can share that journey with other people. And one of the greatest privileges in being a coach is that I'm able to step into somebody else's journey. That's a big deal. But I think until we allow other people to step into our journey and we become transparent with them, until we're willing to do that, we're going to journey alone. And that's tough. We were meant to journey together. And that's why my favorite part of my dental practice is the relationships that I've built with people. I've been a dentist now for almost 21 years. And in that time, I've seen some patients for that whole time. So kids that I saw for their first appointment when they were 2 or 3 years old, now I'm seeing them get married, have kids, graduate college, get jobs, all of that kind of stuff. And so coaching for me has always been logical, because relationships are the favorite part of my life. And then coaching is all about relationships. So it's if you don't have anybody in your life that you would consider a great relationship, a coach is a good way to get that started and get some confidence to get some other great relationships.
I double, triple, quadruple down on what Eric just shared with you. It's fantastic, and it's so true. And I can honestly say that from the bottom of my heart. I've experienced that as well. So it's powerful stuff. And I mean, maybe you just need a coach because you have to go to a dentist. I don't know. And Eric would be one that could definitely fulfill that.
Yeah.
Just teasing. Just teasing.
Happy to help.
That's what it's all about, right? Service.
Yep.
Right? What's the best thing about being in business for you?
Yeah, and I'll kind of go back to what I said. It's relationships. So I would not be a dentist anymore if it wasn't about relationships. The technical craft of dentistry, I feel like after 20 years, I'm pretty good at that. I'd put my work up against anybody else's. I think I'm really good at that. But the thing that keeps me coming back, the thing that gets me in the door in the morning, and the thing that keeps me excited is relationships with my team. I have some team members. My chairside dental assistant has been with me for my entire career. So that relationship is amazing. I spend more time with her, over the years than I've spent with my wife. And then also those relationships that I've gotten through my practice, through my coaching, I asked one of my patients probably 15 years ago to be my mentor because we just hit it off every time when he would come in. And he's still my mentor. And we have lunch once a month, and it's amazing. So I think this is a recurring theme in my life, but I don't know how we get through life without good quality relationships. I just don't know how we do it. COVID, there's no political anything behind this, but COVID told us that everyone was toxic and we had to be away from people. And while that may have kept us from getting COVID, it did tremendous damage to us as human beings. We are better together. We're better when we have our people. And it's very important to find those people. So it's all about relationships for me.
I love that. So the best thing for you about being a business is the relationships. There's no way I could love that statement anymore, honestly. I found the same to be true. And I think for the people listening and watching, I would really ask you, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is that true with you too? And I suspect the answer is yes. So great answer. There's no way I could love that more, Eric. The next question is pretty fun. So this is really designed to dive into people who are getting so much business that sometimes there's a chaos or like an overwhelming feeling that can come when you just have too much business. And we find this is a pretty common thing, right? As people are growing through the growth cycles, you can get so much business that you're just a little bit overwhelmed. Would you be willing to share your thoughts on that, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been through that. Again, my personality and my history that led me to relentlessly pushing. When I got out of school, my dad bought another dental practice. He was a dentist and bought another practice so that we could merge, so I would have a full slate of patients to start with. So I started day one out of dental school. I was booked 6 weeks out right away. And so I didn't ramp up. I didn't do any of that stuff. It was just go, go, go. And I also have what I would consider an addictive personality. So I have to be careful with, collecting or exercising or anything like that. I can really get really crazy about it. So when I get overwhelmed, I just put my head down and work. And what happens when I do that is that here we go to relationships again, my relationships suffer. So when we get so busy, I think what's really easy for us is we get busy, we get overwhelmed, and we reach for our pacifier, right? So, and then it just compounds and snowballs. So a lot of times when we think we're really overwhelmed, we're really not. We're just bad at time management. We're bad at blocking our time. We're bad at knowing, why would we not give ourselves the gift to know that between this hour and this hour, I'm doing this? Really easy in my dental practice because that's all scheduled out for me. Not easy when I'm doing my other content stuff. So I just have days, and when I don't have coaching appointments, when I'm not specifically doing a task, I have to schedule that out and say, from this time to this time, I'm going to be doing this. So yes, there are seasons when we are truly overwhelmed with too much business, but I would say it's been my experience that more often than not, we've just stretched ourselves too thin by a lot of our habits and not having good systems in place.
So much power in what you just shared, Eric. And it's great to hear, different perspectives from different business owners, different experiences and all that. And really what I heard in what you shared is it comes down to, I'm paraphrasing, comes down to time blocking, comes down to time management, it comes down to priorities and habits, I heard in what you said as well. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, me included, you included, everybody listening and watching, if we're honest with ourselves when we get to those moments, we're really going to get back to the fundamentals. And so I love what you're sharing there. It's really powerful stuff. You get back to those fundamentals, you're like, oh, yeah, well, if I wasn't scrolling on my phone for an hour in social media just to decompress, maybe I'd have an hour to actually focus on my work.
Yeah. And let me just say this, Brad, I'm not a master of the phone. I struggle with it all the time. But I have started asking myself when I'm going to pick it up, I just ask myself one simple question. What is the purpose for picking up my phone right now? Why am I picking it up? If it's just to pacify my mind and kick my problems down the road, the things I need to work on, that's not a good enough reason, because I'll get lost in the video trail and all of a sudden I'm watching videos about who even knows what, and I've lost an hour. And then I'm even more overwhelmed. So that's the dangerous thing. I really like that simple question to ask about our phones. I think it helps us. It's just one more check and balance in that overwhelm.
I love that. So this is fantastic because this is real life, right? It's just not like high up on some stage or pedestal or what. This is just what we deal with every day. So question about overwhelm, we're talking about our phones. Look, I think we all do it to some extent, but you're given, I think what you're saying here is really important. When you go to reach for that phone, I mean, that's an action item, right? So you listen and watch it. I'm like, here's an action item for you already. We haven't really got to the crux of the podcast yet, but ask yourself, like, what's the intent and purpose of that? Am I trying to relax? Let's put a time frame on it. Do I actually need something? I need to search it. Let's keep it to that search, right? The intent and purpose of that, I think, is really powerful. So thank you for sharing that, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Here's another fun question. So this is like one of my favorite questions to ask. What other successful business owners like yourself, of course, Eric, ought to be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
Yeah, so it's so cool how we cross paths with people. And again, to use relationships, you're gonna get sick of me hearing that word, but I was at a class that my coach put on for upcoming speakers. And so I was able to meet a guy there named Stan Gibson. And Stan's amazing. Stan has become kind of a mentor to me as well. He's been an executive at 2 different Fortune 500 companies. So he speaks business. That's the thing about me. When people are like, well, I'm an operations systems coach and all of that, those words, I'm going to be honest, I'm not real good with a lot of the business lingo. I help people become better versions of themselves. And Stan is also one of those people who does that. So Stan has written a book called How to Live a Rich and Intentional Life. And that's what he's all about. He's an amazing connector. So Stan would be the kind of guy that you'd love him. You guys would have a great conversation. If everybody had a Stan in their life, the world would be a better place.
Stan the man. I love it. And I love the description that you gave about him too. And so right in this moment, you're being the awesome connector. So I love it, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
A conversation with him. Let's get to the center of this. Let's get down to some action oriented stuff. What's a piece of wisdom? I mean, you already have. What's another piece of wisdom that you would share with other business owners, Eric, based on that vast experience and the many businesses that you're running? The hats, I should call them hats.
So one of the things that I'm starting to talk about with people is that everything has a cost. No matter what we do in our life, everything has a cost. And time is that thing that I don't know, at least in our lifetime, that we're going to figure out how to get more time. So if you have $1 billion, you can't buy an extra second. So it becomes, we trade our time for experiences. That's basically what we're doing. So what experiences are we having? And in the midst of that, the biggest thing really is, how are we taking care of ourselves? So, we're taught, you have to be 100% selfless. And, I think it's great to be selfless, but if we don't take care of ourselves, it doesn't matter. So we have a finite amount of energy in the tank, and we have to do things to try to fill up that tank. You can call it whatever you want, fill your bucket, do whatever. I kind of have an analogy that I work through for that, but ultimately we have to be doing things to take care of ourselves. We have to sleep well. We have to have good relationships. We have to eat well. There's all these things that are really non-negotiable things. And we think that we can just push. And that's what I did. I've done a couple Ironman triathlons. I have climbed to top of Mount Kilimanjaro and some other mountains. And what I did when I got to the top of those is I pretty much said, what's next? I didn't take any time to celebrate. I didn't take a whole lot of time to recover. It was just on to the next thing. So I think we really have to be conscious of those things, of how many yeses we're saying. We can't say all the yeses, at least we can't say them all well, or we will find ourselves in burnout. And when our bucket is low, when our reserve is low, we're burned out. That's most of the time, most of the people that I've talked to, there's different things that happen, but when burnout happens because we're not taking care of ourselves.
I love this for so many reasons. All kinds of things running through the brain on my side as you were speaking. One, I have been burnt out. And so what's cool about that is if you're listening and watching, you ever have experienced some kind of burnout, what's cool is if you've been through that, hopefully now you recognize the signs, and so you can prevent it moving forward. So there's a positive side to have been through that before, because you get to know yourself a little bit better. What I love about what you're sharing here is, yes, it's self-care. Yes, it's selflessness, very intentional word there that you used, selfless. But I want to dive in just a little bit more if you're willing, because I think this is so powerful. The reason why I want to dive in a little bit more, Eric, is because when I see this stuff on the internet, you get these little snippets of these memes or these posts, right? And they're just not deep enough, right? They're probably good information on the surface, but it's just not, there's not the depth that people need. And so yes, we need self-care, and yes, we need to have a great relationship with ourselves. And yes, we can come to burnout if we say yes to everything, right? What you say no to is more important than what you say yes to, sometimes in business and sometimes in life. You captured that in what you were saying. So how do we actually do this? Can we explore that together?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the stuff
boundaries? What is it?
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff on the internet is just go for a walk. How do you beat burnout? Go for a walk. Or how do you beat burnout? Like 5 tips to, all of those things. And they're really shallow. So I think you really have to, and you really have to think about what's going on in your life that's causing this. So what is this? Are you discontent because you're comparing yourself to everybody else? Is that contributing to some of your burnout? Are you saying yes to everything and not boundarying your life? Are you allowing everyone else to have your time? And then who suffers? Your family at home. So to give people kind of a kickstart, I actually did come up with a 5 days to knock back burnout challenge that's on my website. If you go to my website, it's just my name, Eric Recker, ERIC.com, and it will pop up on there, or there's a section for challenges. So that is not going to fix your burnout, but it is going to be you taking a conscious step forward, naming that you either have or maybe are struggling with burnout and you want to learn a little bit more about it. So I talk a lot about small but significant steps. My coach taught me that. And after reading through that, going through that, what is one small but significant step that you can take to knock back burnout? One is just saying to someone else, to a trusted person in your life, hey, I'm feeling a little burnout. Is there any chance you'd walk through this with me, or just listen to me so I can talk? Boy, it has so much power when we keep it in ourselves. I'm sure you know this, Brad. When we keep things to ourselves, they have so much power over us. But even getting them out in the light, it's amazing how much different it makes. So burnout is I think it's multifactorial, but it's not as complicated as a lot of people think. Right
on. Love that. One, I love that you gave them a tool that they can go and find, and we'll give the website here in just a minute. So hang with us. Two, I love that you highlighted that it's really not as complicated as it might feel, right, in the moment. And so having someone to walk through and just talk through that with, to get to the core, of the center of that, you know, what it really is. Sometimes we think it's this and it ends up being something else. And just having, you know, having someone to talk through that with, so you can really get to the core issue, is powerful. The other thing I think is fascinating is when you get to the core, it's not that hard, like, to resolve, right? It's just not. It just seems overwhelming at the time. So
Yeah.
really, really powerful stuff. But what I love most about all that is you give them some steps. Hey, look, you can go, here's the steps, right? Well, we didn't give them here, but they can go get them. And I want to encourage anybody listening and watching, like, do something different, go get them, right? And review the information. Well, there's one other question, Eric, beyond all of that I'd love to ask you, because I know you have multiple businesses and you got lots going on and you have years of experience. One of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with in business, whether you're working for someone else or where you're working for yourself, building a team can be really difficult, right? It can be a big challenge. And so I've seen a theme with lots of people, and I love speaking into that. So would you be willing to share, just off the cuff, one of the challenges that you've experienced in building a team, or maybe one of the tips or tricks that you might have up your sleeve, for the audience, and how they can build a super effective team?
Yeah,
You're going to say relationships, aren't you?
Well, of course I am, but I'll try to go beyond that. But the thing is I think we've seen a huge shift, that we have largely seen the last of people who are going to be at a job for 40 years. The generation before us, you would see some of that. My parents' age, and some of their parents, you know, you'd start a job and you would just stay there. I think now people have to believe in where they work. They have to believe in the bigger mission, and, you know, missions and visions and value statements and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, they need to know that they matter and what they're doing matters. So I do regular check-ins with all the people on my team. I really do. And if somebody goes too many days without somebody checking in on them at work, it's dangerous. It really is. Whether you're working, you can say, I love working remote, I never see anybody, all that kind of stuff. Well, I'd love to hear how you feel like you belong to that group. I think that check-ins with people and being willing to ask tough questions, like, how are you really doing? You don't quite seem like yourself today. Do you want to talk about it? At least give them an outlet to talk about it. And so that's hugely important to me. And then I would way rather hire the right person and have the rest of us have to run a little bit lean for a while than hire the wrong person who's going to be a culture disruptor or an energy vampire, as John Gordon likes to call them. I'm not interested in that. So our team is a family. Even with 20 people, it's a big family. We're a family, and if everybody doesn't have each other's back, it's dangerous. So you have to be thinking about those kind of things. And then when we have meetings talking about, hey, this is going on, how can we work together to resolve this? So this isn't just an island problem that these two people fix. How can we come together as a team? Because people, sometimes in my dental practice, people have nothing to do with the part that we need some help with, have really good ideas, and they're good thinkers. And my goodness, if you come up with a solution in your business and it's not even your business, how good does that feel? How does it feel to be empowered to do that? So some of those kind of things I think are super important. It's not I don't know, it's a different environment than what it used to be. You can't just get away with what you used to get away with.
Yes, to that. It's a little bit of a different world we live in today, which is for the good, for the better. I mean, there's a lot of positive in it. Right. So we're evolving and moving and changing. The one thing that I noticed in a theme in the last couple of questions is really powerful. But before I share that, I just want to celebrate what you just said. So collaboration, the word collaboration is used many different ways in the world we live in today on social media and through conversations. But few people really understand it. Like really, I mean, there's a lot of people who just never seen it. They don't know how they know the word, but they've never seen it synthesized. They don't know how to synthesize the information. And I think you just did a fantastic job of explaining what teamwork and collaboration really looks like. And thank you for that. So I celebrate you for that, Eric.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love that. But the other theme that I saw in some of these conversations is just pausing and asking for help. Really powerful. And I saw at least 2 times through the conversation, I've heard you allude to that, right? Look, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're struggling with something, if you checking with the team, and just be honest with one another and say, hey, I could use a little bit of help with ABC. It's powerful stuff. Eric, you've shared so much great stuff. We're going to shift really fast, put the brakes on, and we're going to talk about something that's not business. I'm really excited to ask you this question. I know that you share with me that we work to live and not live to work. So what is the most fun vacation you've ever had?
Oh man, I am excited to answer this question. So in 2019, so it's my wife and I, and then we have 2 sons. At the time, they were 14 and 17. And so we had planned, I'm part of a missional organization called Many Hands for Haiti. And now we've expanded into 𝐻𝐩𝐭𝐢𝐦𝐚𝐥 in the Bahamas as well. But we were going to get to go, the 4 of us, on a mission trip to Haiti. I was super excited. I'd been part of this organization for a while. I'd been to Haiti 6 or 7 times myself, and I was super excited to bring my family along. Well, if you've heard Haiti recently, it's kind of a disastrous place right now. Where our organization's work is going on, it's still going. It's more in the center of the country. But at that point, the travel advisory level ramped up. And we decided as a board that that trip wasn't going to happen, and we weren't going to allow people to travel down there. Just too much risk. It was really sad. So we were going to do this on spring break. So 2 weeks before spring break, all of a sudden we were without a trip. And so we pivoted, and Haiti's in the Caribbean, even though we weren't going to be on the water. So we wanted to see if we could do something, but man, 2 weeks before spring break, are you going to find anything? Probably not. We ended up, it was the last room they had, being able to go to Turks and Caicos. So we stayed on Providenciales is the island, and a wonderful heavenly slice of beach called Grace Bay. And we were so excited for this trip. Once we knew that the one door was closed, this door was open. And oh my goodness, we had the most amazing time. Our family took an excursion where we went snorkeling for conch shells, and then they made a ceviche for us. We rested, we played football in the ocean, we jumped off a dock, we buried each other in the sand, my wife and I had fruity drinks, we just recharged. We were so present to the moment, we were undistracted. It was one of those that I almost had to quit smiling when I came back. I had to uncork the smile from my face because it was so amazing. But those are the moments where all the work that you do becomes worthwhile, and that's the fruit of how hard we work, is being able to do fun stuff like that. So that was it. That was the fun one.
Amazing. I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. That is why we do what we do, so we can spend time with family, right? And so,
Yep.
And so you can serve, and going back to, why you're in business and the relationships and everything. So thanks. Through this has been fantastic. I feel like you just shared from your heart. I feel like you've given a piece of yourself, and you're here to serve and connect with the audience. So I love that. And thank you for all the actionable information you shared as well, Eric. When somebody listens to this and they watch this and they say, wow, I got to reach out to that guy. What's the best way for them to reach out to you, Eric?
Yeah, the website is probably the best way. You can certainly follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or on LinkedIn. But all of that is linked from my website. So you can see information about hiring me as a speaker or a coach, checking out the book that I wrote, any of that kind of stuff. That's kind of where I hang out. I got a blog that I do on there. So I'd love to connect. I'd love to have a conversation and see if it's a good fit for a relationship. So yeah, that'd be great.
I love it. I want to encourage you to do just that. You've listened and you've watched and you've heard, and I know he's intrigued you. And so now do something different. Go to the website, check it out, see if there's a good fit. He recommended some information for you, and then reach out and have a conversation. There's a novel idea, right? So, Eric, thank you so much for your time. You're here to share and serve, and I really celebrate you and appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Brad. This has been great. I feel like we could talk for hours.
Indeed. On the next podcast. Join us.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. If you're looking for more on leadership, sales, marketing, or operations to drive team development, higher quality, and high-level sustainable profits, we encourage you to join the Built for Brilliance community on Facebook or reach out to us about one of our mastermind groups, coaching or consulting, or even fractional COO services. You can reach us at buildbrilliance.net/contact. We thank you for listening, for sharing the show, and appreciate your rating and reviews, as this makes more shows possible. Thanks for joining us.